No woman, no cry.
I am a 60-something-year-old woman who is finally realizing that one of her dreams is coming true.
Hey, little darling, don't
I'm
shed
so
no
excited to be able to see something that have always been inside me, but I had yet to experience. The journey to the village enhanced my understanding of a culture that I'd always read about, something that I had always seen. As I approached the king, he told me, "You look like your name."
You can't forget your past, so dry your tears, I say.
I cried for the slaves that were held 150 to 200 packed in small, tight rooms with no air. Of the women's whose very bodies was taken from them, the dungeons, to feel them, to feel the walls, to see the blood stains.
Be all right now. Everything is gonna be all right.
Personally, the walk of the last bath for me was a return home. As I walked, I remember picking up a pebble and holding it in my hand. I walked with my mother's picture. My understanding of the African education system is remarkable. The way that they put education first. I've gained a new lease on life. I want to thank the Chancellor, the San Diego Community College District, for honoring me with this homecoming. It meant the world to me. It was an experience that I didn't know I would ever receive, and I'm grateful.
Black Student Success is an initiative to support the dreams, the goals, the desires of our Black students here at the San Diego College of Continuing Education. There isn't a single student, regardless of whether they have a job or not, that isn't facing some sort of challenge and barrier to just being here and being present in the classroom and achieving whatever their goal is. The nature and gravity of the challenges that we face, that not only our students, but we're facing as a people today, sometimes it just seems daunting.
Black Student Success Program, that was something that I read about prior to trying to reach out and find out about it. It opened doors in the sense of I had someone I can talk to about what I did need in order to go forward. Sharing your experience does help others.
We have a lot of support services for our students, so particularly EOPS, as well as our Black Student Union and our Black Excellence Group. Faculty have really been intentional about welcoming our students and providing that extra support.
It makes me feel seen and supported, knowing that Myanmar is taking the time to understand what exactly is the makeup of these students and how to help them to the best of their abilities in terms of those makeups. It makes me feel as a student like I'm being supported and held up by the college itself.
High school me would probably not even believe that I'm here today. I was not an honor student. I was not a student with great grades, but I did want to learn, and I know that I wanted to do something more. So once I graduated high school, I knew that college was on the table and it's something I wanted to do, but I never felt that counselors or teachers when I was in high school had ever really shown me the possibility for a student like me. I think it's really important, and I think all the time about the type of student I was and wishing that someone like me was there to help provide me that guidance. And that really kind of just helps model the work that I do with our Black students here on campus.
Many people that I've known that have been to community college, they didn't finish. But having that community here is really gonna keep you in school, and college is not like an easy thing to do, especially completing college. So having people that you can relate to here, people that look like you, will just keep you attached to your goals.
We are intentional about designing those programs to address Black students' unique needs. The same is true in the classroom. For faculty to create spaces that are inclusive and that welcome and that values the Black experience so that students don't feel that sense of alienation or not feeling like they belong in the classroom.
Once I was able to finally find my people on campus through Umoja, I immediately hopped into leadership and board advisory positions to help advise the board. I eventually became a vice chair of Black Edification for City College's Black Student Union. And then I started my own book club here on campus called Edify Ebony to teach us about our history and to enrich ourselves culturally and intellectually.
At first, I really just wanted to graduate high school and start working, and I felt like that was the way to go. But it's so funny because my mom's a math teacher at Lincoln High School, and she's like, no, absolutely not, you're going to college, like, what are you doing? So I came here, my parents both went here too, and then it's just been like such a beautiful change, and it's actually encouraged me to go further in my life. I want to go to a HBCU now.
Sometimes in this work, you can start to question if what you're doing is actually being received. And to see the tangible payoff, to see that the students who have come to see you multiple times and tell you about their shortcomings and their successes, their worries and their triumphs, they've made it across that stage. They've reached the culmination of their efforts for them to take the next step. It truly is an amazing feeling to know that you poured into someone's cup so they can go forth and continue to pour into others.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to reiterate Jorge's thank you to President Lundberg, all of the classified professionals at Miramar College that made it possible for us to be here today. Thank you to everybody who's joining us here in the room at Miramar. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come be here with us in person. Thank you to everybody who's logged in remotely joining us. And those of you who are watching this after the fact, who couldn't be with us live today, I appreciate you taking the time to tune in. It's a really important topic that we have to discuss today. Jorge laid out in his introduction a bit of the history to how we arrived to this town hall and this topic. And I want to go back and expand a little bit on that. The idea of conducting a district-wide town hall came up in Chancellor's cabinet during the fall of 2024. And at that time, we were talking about different ways that we might bring a spotlight to programs, activities, services, the outcomes that people are achieving around our district that might be largely unnoticed by many of us. And there's so much going on across 4 colleges in our district. It's easy to not be aware of everything that we're doing and what's happening. As we went into planning for the spring in January 2025 with a new president, we get executive orders that say that we're going to do, and I say we, the federal government, is going to do this massive increase in immigration enforcement and really creating significant amount of validated fear and anxiety among our immigrant students, our immigrant communities, our mixed status families. And we got an executive order saying that the federal government was only going to recognize 2 biological sexes and essentially erasing many members of our LGBTQI plus community from any sort of federal recognition. And that became the topic of our first town hall because it was in the news at that moment. And I was getting a lot of questions. What does this mean for our district? Are we going to adopt similar definitions? Are we being forced to in some way? And so I wanted to respond to that by communicating to everyone in the district about what those executive orders mean, did not mean, and most importantly, how they changed nothing for us, that we would continue to have Dreamer Resource Centers and invest in them. We would continue to have Pride Centers and invest in them. We would continue to have graduation ceremonies and affinity groups and learning communities for those communities and double down in our investment. We then went into planning for the fall town hall and thinking again more broadly about what we might spotlight around the district. And in late August, we get notices from the Department of Education saying that we are immediately canceling ongoing grants in your Hispanic Serving Institution STEM programs and in your ANAPISI programs. And so decided that we should make this the focus of the fall town hall to let people know what has happened and how our district is going to backfill those funds. We are not stopping any of that work. We are not laying off anyone. We are not asking any students to stop participating in those programs. That we anticipated a moment like this coming. We've planned for it, and we're able to make that investment to do it. So that determined what the fall town hall topic was going to be. At that town hall, I had someone offer feedback from the audience that we need to spotlight the programs we're doing to serve our Black students. Now that we've talked about other learning communities, and this is an important topic. Back in January last year at the Community College League of California, or CCLC, they do a annual advocacy day in Sacramento, and they do a conference around it. And we had somebody from a national organization talking about some of the early executive orders. And I took that moment in front of an audience of about 800 people to stand up and say, there's something more pervasive going on than the executive orders that have caught all the attention. And that is executive orders that gutted civil rights enforcement in the federal government. And if you take away the enforcement of the law, you can take away the application of the law, even if it's not politically feasible to rescind it. Specifically, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that created agencies to enforce non-discrimination, and the history of how we ended up with the civil rights movement and how that extends from slavery to the rise of civil rights leader in the Black community that did a lot of work that uplifted many different communities that had been marginalized, had been discriminated against. And so there is a real threat from actions that have been taken to the Black community, which makes it important for us to uplift the work that is being done. You saw powerfully in the videos, testimonials from our students, our faculty, classified professionals, and administrators about the work that's being done, the impact of that work, the necessity of that work. And since we are in Black History Month, and we are coming up on our Black Student Success Week programs statewide and locally in the spring, I think this is the ideal time to bring attention to those programs. Also, I heard in feedback from over the first two town halls that name town hall conveys an idea of open Q&A and some dialogue, and that the program had run too long and I kept cutting into the Q&A time. So I will preserve time today so that we actually have some more meaningful Q&A. And when we get to that section, the floor is open to any question, any comment that somebody wants to offer. So with that extended introduction, it's time to get into our program. I want to start by highlighting what's happening district-wide. And as I spotlight this work, these aren't new things that recently started. These aren't things that started in my time as chancellor. It's been a priority of me coming into this role that we make investments in expanding them and continuing them. And that's especially critical because so much of the affinity group programming work we do is funded by categorical funds and grants, which means you don't have the same kind of security long-term that we can continue that work. And so part of my effort has been to bring more unrestricted general fund investment into some of these programs to be able to secure against reductions or cuts that we've seen. So with that, I would like to invite Kaya Mangrum and Nisha Savage to join me up on the stage. We want to talk about our Black Student Success Initiative out of our Educational Services Office in the district in coordination with our colleges, and our Rite of Passage program, which if you want to attend an incredible event celebrating the success of our students, it is one of the most emotional experiences I've had at anything in our district. So I would invite you to attend that coming up later in the spring. With that though, we'd love to have Kaya and Nisha introduce themselves to everyone, tell us a little bit about your role, and then we can go into the program.
Hello. Hi. Thank you, Chancellor Smith. My name is Kaya Mangrum. This is my third year as an English professor at San Diego Miramar College. I've taught English probably 26 years before that. You can ask me about that if you'd like. I'm also the faculty chair of the district's Black Student Success Institute, which I'll talk about in a bit.
Nisha Savage. I am a counselor at San Diego City College. I'm currently also assigned to lead our Black Student Success initiatives on our campus, which is inclusive of all the programming that we're doing to advance Black student success on our campus.
Thank you both for the introduction and for the work that you're doing. So can you tell us, what is the Black Student Success Initiative?
Okay, thank you. Could you cue the slides, please? So first, I'd like to once again thank you to the Chancellor, to Vice Chancellor Susan Topham, Dean Lillian Garcia, Professor Veronica Gerace, whoop whoop, who was in this position before I was, and to all of my colleagues, so many who I cannot name at Continuing Ed, City, Mesa, and Miramar, who made the Black Student Success Institute possible. So thank you all so much. I'm so glad to be with y'all. Okay. So the Black Student Success Institute is a district-wide coalition of students, staff, faculty, and administrators at our 4 institutions. So at Continuing Ed, City, Mesa, and Miramar. And we all work together to help Black students succeed in the district with both their academic and career goals. Some of our most recent goals has been to build community across campuses, which is an ongoing initiative. So let me tell you some of the programs that we support. So the Black Student Success Summit is a 1-day event that takes place before Black Student Success Week. So Black Student Success Week is a week-long set of events at each campus all over California. So on April 20th through the 24th, every community college in California will be figuring out ways to support Black students. And each district has their own kickoff as a way to celebrate the beginning of that. So ours is April 20th. It's virtual, you're all invited, and you'll be hearing more about that soon. It's often led by students. Last year, we had students share some of their gifts. Someone cooked for us. There were people singing. So students, if you have any talents, talk to me. Okay. We also have a Black Professionals Day. This is an opportunity for Black students to learn kind of the ins and outs of preparing for the job field, learning how to write a resume, learning how to give an elevator pitch, getting some practice with networking. This is usually held in the fall, but this year it's going to be occurring in May. And more about that towards the end. We also tried some online workshops this past fall, and I think that they were pretty successful. We did one where we talked about networking and another where we talked about transferring to a 4-year institution. We hope to do some future workshops. If you're a student and you feel like there's something that you would like to hear about, please let me know. I'm gonna leave my email on this last slide. You can contact me. Oops. And there's the slide with the upcoming events. So you can take a photo of that. The Black Student Success Summit, like I said, is April 17th. Black Student Success Week is the 20th through the 24th. Black Professionals Day is here at Miramar on May 8th. And my colleague will be talking about rite of passage. And if you would like to connect with us, we send students announcements via our Canvas shell. We're trying to get our Instagram up and going. That's our Instagram address. And there's my email. Thank you.
And so for our rite of passage celebration, actually last year it was here. Each year we rotate to different campuses. It's a tradition that was started, I would say, was it like 5 years ago, Larry? I can't remember. Yeah, maybe a little bit longer than that. Gerald, I think that's when Gerald was around. Denise, Larry was a part of that as well. And it's really become sort of its own thing. You know, for most of us who attended a 4-year institution, we all participated in what we call Black Grad. And really, it's an opportunity for us to focus on celebrating the accomplishments, the resilience, the sacrifices of our Black students who are now graduating or transferring to a four-year institution. And so, again, it's a district-wide event. Our chancellor comes, our board of trustees attend, and of course, we have our presidents from each of the colleges who are there, also helping to celebrate our students. And so we have food because really that's how we build community, is around food, and we also have we give our students kente cloths. And so it's just an amazing celebration. We have drummers, dancers, and it's an amazing event where, again, our students hopefully walk away feeling celebrated, again, for their accomplishments and their sacrifices as they move on to the next step in their educational journey.
Thank you both for sharing that. Something that maybe I should have said in the introduction, but I think this is an ideal time. In the last couple of years, nationally, there's been this conversation around whether or not affinity group celebrations like this are somehow discriminatory under federal law, or in the way that some states that have passed laws trying to prohibit these types of events, if they're divisive. And I find that such an interesting way to frame this conversation because they're essential given the legal history of exclusion, of racism, sexism, all forms of discrimination that we've had that were legal for the majority of our history and pervasive throughout higher education. And many of you have heard me talk about in the past that a lot of the systems set up in higher education are meant to keep people out. That you have to, in a four-year context in highly competitive schools, you have to apply and present yourself as being worthy of being accepted. And they tell more people no than yes. So it's similar to a hiring process where we collect a large number of applications and then figure out who to tell no. And that history of exclusion impacts us to this present day. And so telling somebody who historically would have been denied entry that you are welcome here takes more than just we're no longer discriminating and telling you you're not allowed to be here. We have to cultivate community. We have to go an extra mile, I would say, to express that belonging. And so it's important that we do this because of the history and the context that we exist in today and things that were codified in the way we operate generations ago that continue to persist to this day, continue to create barriers. And if we don't create learning communities where that welcoming and belonging happens, and we don't get the feedback on how does the way that the system works today continue to perpetuate these barriers, then we will not recognize where the work needs to be. And so I want to say that for anybody who's perhaps hearing this broader national context of the conversation and wondering, why does our district continue to do this? Should I be viewing it in that lens that I've been hearing about? Is this divisive? No, it's quite the opposite. This is meant to create inclusion. And you can't do that by saying we're just going to ignore the past. I need to embrace the past for the work that we need to be doing today. So I want to thank you for the work that you're doing to ensure that our students experience that inclusion and belonging. And thank you for what you shared there. I am curious to hear, are there specific examples, perhaps anecdotes, just not necessarily without naming any people, but where students have told you about the experience and how it's helped shaped their ability to succeed in higher education? Anything immediately kind of come to mind?
I mean, we interact with our students, often, daily, when they're at our institution. So we get to sort of witness or experience, to see the fruits of our labor. But what is the most powerful thing is when you go to like San Diego State, for instance, we do a lot of collaboration across systems. And so I could randomly be at San Diego State for a different program, and you'll see, like I did last night, students who went to San Diego City College who were in the audience at an event that I attended for Black students. And just to hear their testimony about how different it is for them now that they're at the four-year institution where it's a bigger institution and where they don't really have that sense of community or that village where they can rely on. And really, sometimes the village becomes their lifeline, right? And so I think hearing students share about that experience of like when they were at San Diego City College and they felt like they had the village and the support and that lifeline. And now to not have that, I think that's when you really can see, wow, so the work that we're doing really is having a significant impact beyond them being on our campuses.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Somebody earlier today asked me why it's important for community colleges to offer baccalaureate degrees. And part of my answer was the learning communities that we've created, that we don't necessarily want to see students have to leave and know that they're not going to find that support, that inclusion, that belonging somewhere else. And if we can see them through to the baccalaureate degree, we just remove one more barrier to their success. Kai, anything that you would like to share?
I just want to ditto everything my colleague said. I'm very new to the district, and I have found that as I have learned more about the Black community here, there are a lot of different kind of Black folks. We are not a monolith, right? We've got folks who are immigrants. We've got folks who are mostly online. And what I've appreciated is the way that the programming we do reaches out to all those different students to support them in the ways that they need. So yeah, I just really appreciate what my colleagues have already built, and I'm really excited to help build alongside them.
And I appreciate you highlighting that intersectionality. It can be because of the labels that we use that were created by the federal government and our state government replicated, of having you check a box for race or ethnicity and thinking, well, everybody who checks this box, I can assume something about. We really can't, right? I mean, we can assume one thing, that our history of discrimination based on skin color affected that person, but who you are as an individual, the intersecting identities that you carry with you shapes your experience. And it is not the same thing to be an 18-year-old Black man that is to be a 64-year-old Black man, or to be a person who identifies as trans who is also Black, or any number of different characteristics we carry. And so seeing the individual first, not the labels that go with it, I really value that you highlighted that. Well, thank you both for coming up and sharing a bit. I think, Nisha, will be seeing you again shortly as we talk about City College specific programming. But thank you for the work that you're doing. And if you have a chance to participate this year in our Black Student Success Week programs, come to the Rite of Passage ceremony. There's incredible work being done, and hearing directly from our students in those spaces, I think will answer any questions that anybody might have about why do we do this and how important it is. Thank you both. So now I want to transition to what is being done at each of our colleges. There's an exceptional amount of work being done that if you're not directly involved in, you may not be aware of. And so I would like to first, since we're here at Miramar College, invite Vice President Michael O'Doux to come up and join me on stage to talk about how Miramar is spreading its Miramar love in honor of Vice President O'Doux. But the programs that are being done to support our Black students here at Miramar College. Vice President O'Doux. Welcome. And if you have slides, then they'll get those queued up for you now. I can see they're frantically working in the back to get that up. And be sure you use the microphone so we pick you up on Zoom.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So I think I just have 2 slides. So while working on the slide, let me just give you my opening here. So as we all know, higher education was not designed to serve today's diverse students. And more importantly, the community college system was not designed for Black students. Access was restricted, opportunity was limited, talent was overlooked. Even as doors opened, systems often remained unchanged. So, how do we create and sustain the conditions that support the success of students, majority of whom higher education was not designed for? How can we meet these students where they are, get to know them, and take them to where they need to be? One way we are responding to this challenge is by showing them Miramar love. Through the Black Resource Center, which is an opportunity to build community and celebrate excellence. And that is the cue for my slide.
I think that there may be a technical issue and we do not have the slides ready to show. We're getting the slides.
Oh. So I don't want to take too much time. I can go through what's the Resource Center. So the Black Resource Center is a welcoming space that supports Black identifying students and allies through connection, resources, and community building. The Black Resource Center, or BRC, promotes student success by supporting students academically, socially, and personally throughout their time at Miramar College, while also working to reduce barriers, as the Chancellor has alluded to many times, to belonging, access, and awareness of campus resources through intentional engagement and referral. What do we offer at this center? We offer community space for students to connect and gather, academic counseling support and referrals, career readiness workshops and skill building opportunities, leadership and advisory opportunities for students, campus resources, navigation and referrals, and events that celebrate culture, identity, and community. We also have programming and engagement events. We have the following: welcome and community building events, cultural celebrations and campus collaboration, student advisory group opportunities, career and academic focus workshops, outreach and tabling to connect with students wherever they are. Some of the highlights from fall 2025 include the following. We collaborated with the Transfer Center on the first ever HBCU workshop. At this workshop, students learned about the HBCU and requirements needed. They learned about the California Community Colleges partnership with 25 plus HBCUs. And of course, we hosted a Black Excellence Resource Center. For the spring of 2026, we are looking at prioritizing early and consistent student connection, not just a one-time interactions, increasing student awareness of the Black Resource Center and available support, creating multiple entry points for engagement through outreach, events, and referrals, and something else that is very important to us, people say, if you build it, they will come. People are coming, but I will be able to take them to the finish line. And taking them to the finish line addresses the point that if students are true at the center of the work we do in academia, who do we have at the base, at the foundation of that work? Our employees. So not only are we looking at working or taking our Black students to the next level, we want to build that foundation with our Black employees. Thank you.
And right as you finish that, your slides are now up on the screen. So if you would like to go back and revisit any of the information that you shared that you were reading from, you have the remote there. You can change the slides to show any of that, but anything you want to go back and reiterate?
No, I think everything I have is good. Yes, indeed.
All right. Thank you, Vice President Adu. Similar question for you. I'm curious, have you received any feedback from students that have taken advantage of the resource center, of the learning communities you talked about? What's been impactful that you've heard?
And what has been impactful is the way I ended basically my earlier talk, that what students have said to us, at least for me as the VP, each time I go around and I meet them, is the support they're getting for our Black employees. To them, it's like, I thought I was the only one here. I didn't know that there are other folks like me. So I think that is very powerful.
Extremely.
Yeah, extremely indeed. Yeah.
In your role as Vice President of Instruction, you have the opportunity to influence how many different parts of, the most essential thing that we do, the teaching and learning in the classroom. Is there anything that has come out of the Black Resource Center that has helped to inform broader changes in the way that we're scheduling or delivering instruction or curriculum is being developed, or things that are affecting students well beyond just those that come participate in the program?
Absolutely. I say, and I will put it this way. Colleges that focus on taking care of their Black students, they tend to do well serving all students. That is what has come up for us. So not only when you reach out to the Black students, you're also reaching out to every one of them.
Well, thank you so much for highlighting what's being done at Miramar College for the work that you're doing. I apologize about the mix up with the slides there, but we'll get that information out to folks. Thank you so much, Dr. Odu.
It's all Miramar love, no worries. Thank you.
So now we will transition to our College of Continuing Education, where similarly tremendous work is being done to support our continuing education students. And just very briefly, as I welcome Dr. Shakira and Dr. Sievers up to join me, the College of Continuing Education has such a broad mission. We have students who have just come to the United States, immigrants, asylum seekers, refugees, who already have sometimes doctoral level degrees in our system that need English language skills to be able to go to work, to start to provide for their family. We have students who come from areas that have very little education, very little exposure to technology, who need both English language skills and work skills that they can acquire to be able to go to work in our region. We have students, 75% of the students at the College of Continuing Education tell us that their goal ultimately is to go on to earn a 4-year degree. So that transition from our non-credit programs into our credit programs and then transfer on. So it's really an incredible set of priorities that we have to meet the needs of the more than 20,000 students that come to CE every year. So this work takes on a special level of significance in seeing them through multiple levels of goals and outcomes. So with that, I would like to introduce Vice President of Student Services, Shakira Carter, and one of our incredible faculty members, Dr. Terry Sievers, to talk about what are we doing at the College of Continuing Education to support our Black students.
Yes, thank you, Chancellor, and thank you for starting with that context. That's the exact space that I was going to start from. So when we talk about the students that we serve at San Diego College of Continuing Education, last year we served about 24,000 students. About 17% of those students, about 4,000 were Black students. And of those Black students, about 23% of those students were Black students from different countries who immigrated here and whose English was their second language. So that's really the context from which we approach how we serve our Black students. And when we were coming back from the pandemic and thinking about how we were going to serve these students a little more intentionally, at that time, we had lost more than half of our students. We went from 30,000 students to about 12,000 students. And the students who were most impacted by that decrease were our Black students, specifically our Black males and our Latinx students. And so we did a lot of intentional work and had conversations about what was the best way for us to address this. We had a small group of committed individuals who was doing this work, other duties as assigned. We had no real infrastructure for Black student success. So a lot of the programs that you hear talked about today from the colleges, they've had funding for those programs for years. We never had that. And so as we talked about the best way for us to do this, we wanted to be really intentional about how we built our support for Black students, given that, as my sister said earlier, we're not a monolith, right? And so we can't approach the services all in the same way. And so our first starting point was to bring in a consultant group to help us understand from the student perspective what it is that they need. So we worked with the consultant group that came in and worked with our students for over a year, doing focus groups and talking with our students and understanding what their experience was, not just at the college, but when they went to the credit colleges, and not just at the credit colleges, but when they were in the community, and what it looked like for them to transfer to San Diego State and all of the dreams that they've navigated and immigrated to this country with, and how we can help them find a sense of belonging at our college. And what we heard from them is that they wanted to understand what it meant to be a Black immigrant in this country and at this college. And for our Black American students, they wanted to understand the perspective of the Black immigrant students. And so we were ready to invest in opening a Black Student Success Center, but our students said that they wanted a multicultural center where they could see a reflection of all of the diaspora of Blackness. And so we opened our multicultural center at our Mid-City campus. But one of the most significant investments that we made was investment in people and infrastructure. As I mentioned, we had a small group of committed, dedicated, passionate folks that were doing this almost as a side job, right? Nobody had this as a part of their assignment. It was just people that were committed to the work, that saw the need. And so we hired our first ever Black Student Success Counselor Coordinator. We started with just a 50% assignment, and that's Dr. Sivers here, and he's going to talk with you all about the good work that he's doing. But we brought him on, and we were able to eventually increase that assignment to 100%. But we also took the data from the students and we invested in mental health resources. We invested in basic needs resources. We invested in the center. And we used that to kind of drive how we were going to help students be successful. When we look at our success data for our Black students, we see that they do really well. When we look at retention, it's 71% compared to our overall, that's 70%. That's pretty high when you consider some other colleges. When we look at our course completion rate for our Black students is 69% compared to 67% overall. But when our students come to us and the context from which they come to us, they come to us from communities of suffering, of poverty. Over 40% report an earned income of $10,000 or less a year for a family of 4. So our students are coming to us to learn a language, but they were really telling us that I'm coming to you to get a job, and not just any job, a good job. And the pathway to a job for our students is longer than the pathway to a job for many of the students at the credit colleges because of what you mentioned, right? That pathway to getting the bachelor's degree. And so our work has been around identifying what post-completion success looks like for our Black students. And that's much of what Terry is going to talk about and how he's been able to address that through the Black Student Success Program.
Thank you, Chancellor. Thank you, Dr. Carter. I started in the community college system as an adjunct counselor at Grossmont. And I didn't land my full-time job until about 3 years ago. I went on about 35 interviews, and including right here at this school. VP wasn't here at the time, before finally landing a full-time position. But like Dr. Carter mentioned, it was around 2020, the fall of 2020, where I interviewed for a adjunct position at the San Diego College of Continuing Education. And Star Riviera was in the interview. And although it was for a general counseling position, she saw something in me that resonated and thought that that what I brought to the campus could really impact our students. And that, I think, paved the way ultimately for me creating this position, Black Student Success, at a part-time basis before transitioning into a full-time position. So I'm grateful to the college for giving me this opportunity, for believing me, for seeing something in me that maybe other colleges didn't see, and in part, maybe I didn't even see in myself. I didn't know what I was getting into when we first started. We would meet every month on a monthly basis and just try to figure it out. Then me and Maureen Rubacaba would hit the ground running, trying to meet students, trying to engage with the community, and really, at a very critical time in our country's history, during the Black Lives Matter protest and COVID and everything that was happening, trying to figure out a way to support our students. When Dr. Tina King came in and during her first speech to the campus said, we're going to break the rules, the first thing she did one of the first things was hire me. And we hit the ground running again. And breaking rules to support our students and efforts to support our students. I don't take no easily, and generally, if I see no as basically me not presenting myself in the right way or not asking the right question. So using every bit of my energy and my effort and commitment to supporting our students. This is what I saw and experienced as a former community college student at Mesa College, and my mentors and the late nights and the space they held for students. That's what I knew, and that's what I brought to this work. Black Student Success is a student who was told that that she would have to, she had already an advanced degree from her home country. Already, she was a medical doctor, being told by another counselor that I would have to go through the process of going to community college to get her RN in order to go out there and work. But no, she's mad at me right now. I mean, so but Black Student Success is her getting her admission letter into USD, where she's going to be getting her master's in nursing. That's Black Student Success at continuing education. Black Student Success is a student who is on this, who's just here, 21 years old, 22 years old, and just barely hanging on to the hope and belief in this dream he had in this country, and receiving a letter stating that not only did he get a full-time job within our district, but he also got his work permit so he could actually accept and take that job. And the impact that it had and it had on him and his belief. And Black Student Success is young Byron, who basically had to grow up on his own because of trauma. Because of the trauma he experienced from his mother and father. And it's interesting because I'm sitting with him one day talking about him thinking about taking his life, and I'm getting emails about policies and procedures that just don't that just that just don't mesh with the student experience. But me and the team who just comes together, in a really improvisational way, loving on this young man and getting him into a program that allowed him to finish high school and ultimately get a certificate in plumbing. But that's Black Student Success. It's the triumphs, it's the victories, it's the tears, it's all the emotions, and basically, it's the human experience that we try to impart in each encounter with our students, regardless of the systemic issues.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Terry, if I could, you answered the question I've asked the others basically as you spoke. In the video, and thank you for agreeing to do that, you finished your segment, and what I felt at such a deep level was a weight, is the way that it came across to me that you were feeling. And I think it came through in the emotion as you were describing that now. Would you mind sharing a bit about that? What is it that you feel right now in this moment and trying to do this work to serve our students, the way that they're experiencing the community, what's happening nationally, where that weight is coming from and how it's manifesting?
Well, part of it is preparing for the future. And I think as bad as things have gotten, I think they will probably get worse before hopefully they get better. And that worse and the implications and ultimately what it's going to mean for Black people is something we have to prepare for. So part of the weight is kind of this future. Part of the weight is the date. Well, part of the weight is me losing my hairline in the process too. And having to wake up and see my reflection in the morning. Like, dang, I used to have hair. But but part of the weight is taking a trip to Ghana. And thank you for continuing to support those efforts. Because when you go and you experience like those dungeons, even if you're non-Black, you need to go because those dungeons gave birth to society as we know it today. And knowing that it's on me to change the course of the future. So every moment, every encounter that I have with my students, and to the best of my ability with my colleagues, it's up to me to change the course of the future. And so it's a burden, it's a challenge, and it's something that I decided long ago as a community college student, like this was my mission and this was my calling. Um, um, but I still, even in my preparation for this and being able to even share tears, in a public forum like this is part of my preparation, and being able to express my emotions through this process. But I still with the daily interactions, the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of this work, it is, like I said, it's daunting.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for humanizing it. And also thank you for illustrating how essential this work is. And sometimes in the conversations I'm in, especially when it's at a policy level or at a legal level, I get the sense people think of higher education as a luxury that some people should have and others don't need. And that manifests in such terrible ways that we talk about education, and it completely masks over that this is, I mean, I don't want to overstate it, but I really believe in some ways this is life or death work for some people. And if they do not have pathways to prosperity, the outcomes for them, their family, their community, it is that serious. It needs to be treated with that respect. And you've given it that by humanizing it in the stories that you shared of the people that you've helped serve. So thank you for your work. Thank you for bringing that lens to it and sharing that with all of us. And as you do that, it really causes me to rethink how do we continue to expand the investments. And you mentioned the Ghana trip, which I just briefly want to touch on. So across California, a number of institutions have participated in the All Africa Diaspora trip in Ghana. And President Shabazz, who's part of the planning committee on that trip, came back to me a couple of years ago and said, you know, we've been using different categorical funds or grants to be able to send a small number of people on this. And my colleagues at Los Rios, for those of you who don't know the Los Rios Community College District, it's up in Sacramento, keep telling me about how they send the most people on the trip. And I want to challenge them for that. And I answered Ricky's call with, we're going to invest. So you put the call out and you tell me how many people want to go and we'll find the money. And that's what we did the first year. And this is back in 2022. And then in 2024, reiterated even having expired some of those categorical funds, and we're going to figure it out. And we'll kick in at some of our unrestricted general fund. And we're doing the same now in 2026, including expanding employees who do not work in instruction, who do not work in student services, but their lived experience or their desire to, as you just articulated, to go and understand the history of humanity in many ways and to bring that back with them. And so we've opened this up broadly, and that is an ongoing investment the district's going to continue to make, because we can't continue to have this be add-ons that certain people participate in. It has to be woven into how we operate at every single level. And you've highlighted so clearly why that is. Vice President Carter, I saw you kind of checking notes. Was there anything that you wanted to come back and catch up on you didn't cover?
It's a lot here, but I just end with this and say that as we talk about like the infrastructure of how we built this work and who we built it for and why we built it, I'm reminded of the work that Dr. Frank Harris and Dr. Luke Wood did in Black Minds Matter. And I think we actually took that class together. And in that work, they talk about the ethics of love. And at continuing education, we often talk about like loving our students to success. And I think sometimes when we say that, some folks can get uncomfortable because they think about the feeling of love, right? But I think about the system of love and how love can live in systems, right? If we are intentional about it, right? We can love our students to success if we don't have the infrastructure in place. And Dr. Michael talked about how it is that we're serving our Black employees as well that's doing this work, like Dr. Cybers, who, you know, unfortunately, he's our only Black student success, but not for long. We'll have funding soon, hopefully. I ain't no promises, but that we can add some additional support there because the work is heavy, right? It is a lot for you to do as other duties as assigned. And when we expect people to operate in those ways, then it's easy for the work to fall off, and that's not intentional and that's not love, right? And so I'm thinking about some of the systems that are currently being created, and you started the forum with talking about in HSI and Anapesi and some of the ways that we've seen funding federally and statewide come through some of those grants. And now we see the evolution of the Black Serving Institution initiative that we're going to talk about later today. And I started here by saying that continuing education, we serve 17% of our population are Black students. The threshold for Black Serving Institution is 10%. And so we're not a part of that, of course, as a non-credit, right? And so that's the message that I'm always sending. Like, how is that? How are we setting up systems of love, even for our non-credit students? because we are uniquely positioned to serve those students in a way that other colleges are not necessarily positioned to serve them because of the barriers and challenges that they bring along with them. So as we're creating systems for Black serving institutions or promoting equity work or dreamer centers or all of the ways that we create systems, not forgetting the Black students that are in our non-credit institutions so that we have the funding to provide the support to the employees who provide the love to the students who help them overall with being successful. So thinking about how does love show up in the systems that we have? The Black student success work that has been done at the district for a long time, a small group of committed, passionate folks, right? No funding. We have the student equity funding at the state level, right? We see funding for other groups of populations, and it's well-deserved and it's much needed. And we don't want to get in an equity war, right? Or battle of talking about these things, but what is it, how does it position, what does it illustrate to our Black students when we don't have that same level of infrastructure and funding, whether at a district, college level, or even at a state or national level? So in the ways that we can advocate for that type of support, I think we're demonstrating love to our students and our communities.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I've embraced using that language in my role as chancellor. Previously being responsible for Title IX, I never used the word love. Which was a very limited way of thinking about it. I had to expand my thinking. We're not obviously talking about romantic love, sexual love. We're talking about seeing the person, caring deeply about them, their lived experience, and how we can tailor ourselves to facilitate their success as an expression of love. So I appreciate you saying that. Also, because you brought it up, just want to highlight that such an important point that we don't allow competition for limited resources to happen and to start to shape the way that we interact with each other. And this, I think, was by design. The Hispanic Serving Institution and Anapeasy grant money that was cut by Department of Education was reallocated to HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. And several presidents of those universities very prominently stood up and said, oh, we need more funding, but not this way, and refused to get called into that kind of interaction. And we have to be willing to do that locally as well. So I hear your call for resources. I'll sharpen my pencil, do some more math. We are going to continue to make the investments. And this was a key point of advocacy in Sacramento as we talked about our student equity and achievement program, both in the context of not recognizing non-credit students in that program, and we're not getting allocated what we should, and that program hasn't received an increase since 2023. And when it doesn't continue to grow, it limits the services that we can provide as the cost of providing them increases naturally over time. So thank you for the work you're doing, what you've highlighted. Appreciate it. And you provided a great transition. Coming up next, we'll talk about Black serving institution designation. So thank you both so much. And so as we make that transition, I want to invite Nisha Savage back up. And Dr. Hill, are you going to join us as well? Excellent, thank you. And then also Vice President of Student Services, Larry Maxey from Mesa College. We're gonna have City and Mesa come up together because they are two of the inaugural institutions in California that have earned the BSI designation. I want to give you just a little bit of history of how this came to be. I think in part because of the establishment of historically Black colleges, there had not been at the federal level really any kind of coordinated effort to identify institutions that were serving large numbers of Black students and direct resources to address those historical inequities. The same way that it happened with Hispanic serving colleges, and then later Asian American, Native American, Pacific Islander serving colleges. At the state level, as we saw a rise in expressions of hate in social media, violence in different Asian communities, particularly post-COVID, and the way that the president at the time was talking about that in a very racist kind of way. The state created a program called the Asian American, Native American, Pacific Islander Student Achievement Program and put funding into it to specifically respond to things that were happening in our communities against those communities, against those students. The Hispanic Serving Institution Program in the federal government goes back to the mid-90s. And until very recently, nobody had any reason to suspect that that funding would go away or that program would get challenged. And so there hadn't really been a coordinated effort at the state. but the lack of recognition of institutions that were doing tremendous work, like you've heard so far, to serve our Black students and communities, not being recognized became a point of concern and interest. In particular, Dr. Keith Curry, the president at Compton College, working with his local elected delegates, put a lot of time and energy into, along with Dr. Wood, Luke Wood, who was mentioned earlier, now president of Sacramento State, to getting the state to create a BSI designation, and then to use that as a model to have a federal designation, which of course isn't going to happen for the next couple of years. But that BSI designation at the state level was created with the intent of also having funding, much like the HSI programs and the NPC programs. The designation legislation passed. The $75 million funding bill did not. And that was in large part because of the budget deficit in 2024, which highlights how we continue to fund the things we always have without asking, who is this serving? Who is it not serving? What historical inequities are we perpetuating? And then treating the correction to that historical inequity as an add-on we can do when we're having a good budget year. So there's a lot to be interrogated about the decision-making around that and the values that it expresses. Fortunately, the designation did pass, and the recognition for the work that had been going on for years at City College and Mesa College could at least be granted through the designation. Now, we'll continue to work to get the funding that should go with that, but I am excited that we have that way of publicly marketing. We've been doing this. And so I wanted to have City and Mesa come together to talk about what have we been doing that allowed us to earn this designation. And so, Larry, perhaps we'll start with you.
Yeah, and thank you for having us. And we're very excited to have received this designation. And as you stated, currently there is no funding associated with it. And so from a very practical perspective, that would be great reason for many people to say, well, there's no sense in us doing anything about it. But essentially, we've received this designation for what we have been doing. And so we're taking it as an opportunity as the leading college of equity and excellence to really pull our resources together and to support one another, because we're confident that it is the right thing and that eventually there will be some resource, some funding associated with it, and we'll be perfectly placed to be able to use those resources collectively as an institution. It's important to note that it's one thing to be a Black enrolling institution. It's another thing to literally serve our students, and that really is the purpose. That's what we're hoping to do. So my presentation just highlights our strategic plan for our BSI strategic plan, and I just want to share some elements of that strategic plan with all of you, to kind of identify how we're going to engage the work if we have that. There we go. Very nice. Okay, so, oh, there is. Okay. All right, let's see.
Slides are not advancing with the remote right now. There we
Okay,
go.
there we go. Okay. Okay, this is a little dense here. So essentially, this is our mission statement for our strategic plan, whittled into some bullets and really some concepts that all of us are familiar with. Our commitment, our goals, our alignment, all of these things have to be institution-wide. The successful outcome for Black students is not a student services function, nor is it strictly an instructional function. Even administrative services plays a role in ensuring the success of Black and African American students. And so we want to make sure that we invite the entire Mesa College community to be a part of and engage in this work and to accept their role and responsibility in its success and its outcomes. Without looking at the data, it is impossible for us to know whether or not we're achieving the success. We have created communities where students' sense of belonging has skyrocketed. Anecdotally, we know that. They're telling us they feel good in our spaces. But if they're not walking across that stage at commencement, celebrating the accomplishment, then it really is all for naught. So as we look at some of the equity goals that we have outlined within our BSI plan, eliminate, you see words like eliminate, reduce, close, right? These gaps that have been persisting for some time. I'll note number 2, which is reduce by 5% successful completion of first-year transfer level math. We currently are experiencing a 9.9% equity gap. And our goal is to reduce that by 5%. So if we accomplish that goal within the time frame, we're still going to have a gap. But we recognize that we have to begin somewhere. So it starts with the data, it ends with the data. So that's an important part of the work that we're engaging in. One of the things that we are proud to implement at Mesa College is what we're calling the Harambe Protocol. And shout out to Dr. Judy Sandayo before she retired. This was really her brain trust. Harambe is Swahili for pulling all together, which certainly is an appropriate way to phrase what we're endeavoring to do. And you see that in this picture was our first meeting of our BSI gathering. And you see constituents from across the campus and across the community working together to find ways for us to support each other in the work that we have been doing. But now, how can we ramp it up and add more meaning to it? And then Dr. Hans told me, eliminate all that small print. I just didn't do it. But the point is, in Harambe, we're pulling together all of these programs and more, which collectively meet together, build each other up, demonstrate or find ways to communicate the work that we're doing and affirm one another. So we're looking at amend. We have an amend charter, which is fantastic. The nice thing about amend that I appreciate is that it centers the work of our athletics department. Because we know the data tells us that disproportionately African-American males in particular are disproportionately involved with athletics than other groups. And they're doing a fantastic job of supporting. So we view athletics as a learning community for us. And so we're leveraging all of that fantastic work with our men charter in order to support that work even further. Our Black Student Union, we can't do it without our students. Umoja, we understand how important that learning community is. Really, the idea of expanding what Umoja does is really what is going to help us to be successful. We're looking at our Black Faculty Counseling Collaborative, which is a coalition of Black counselors who come together to support our students. Our Black employment community, we're working to pull Black employees together and to create community with one another, as Dr. Adu was talking about the importance of our doing that. Our Black Student Success Work Group with the district, we invite that work to be a part of what we're doing. Our Black Studies Department, we cannot get this done without the love that is being demonstrated and manifested within the Black Studies Department at Mesa College. Dr. Takima Mayasa, Dr. Candice Katunji, and others are so wholly committed to this work and the instructional part of it that we have to have them around the table. Our Mesa College Institutional Effectiveness Office, when we talk about the data eliminating the 3.1% gap, that's a finite number of students. That could be 10 students. And we need them to tell us, hey, we need to go get 10 students to eliminate this equity gap. Are we intentional enough to view it in that way and to get that work done? Our Student Success and Equity Office, Dean Leticia Diaz, not only Dean Diaz, but Dr. Cynthia Rico, Victoria Miller, Dean of Student Affairs as well. All of student services really working together to collaboratively support these efforts. And then we would be remiss if we did not mention our mental health project programs as well. We also have the LOFT, which is the Learning Opportunities for Transformation, which centers much of this work, Dr. Janae Johnson, and other areas of the campus that are not here on this particular diagram, but are all a part of a collaborative that comes together to support our Black students. And then, so we're asking folks, how can you support us? Well, promote and create opportunities. Have you visited or gone to a Black History Month event this month? If you haven't, make it a goal to just show up. Attend. It means the world to our students. Collaboration within areas with someone who already is creating culturally affirming environments. Get informed, use data, and center Black student voices. So this is how MESA is going to be engaging in the work. And I just wanted to share a little bit of our strategic plan with you and look forward to answering any questions that you might have.
Before we do that, let's go over to Dr. Savage, Dr. Hill to share what's happening in the city.
So if you can pull up our presentation as well. So I guess we're talking about the Black Servant Institution designation, and then we'll transition into some of the work that we're doing. So, Larry mentioned data, which I feel like sometimes data can be very tricky. We get our data for our student equity and achievement program from our state chancellor's office. And we've been saying for years that, at least at City, that, that data sometimes doesn't tell us the true story or the right story. And so I know that, at City College, a couple of years ago, we did some intentional work with the folks at USC, bringing them down here to work with a group of us to really dissect the data in a way that that would tell the true story. So for instance, if you have 10 Black students on your campus and 9 of them are succeeding, then they may not appear as being a disproportionately impacted group. And when you say that to an institution that goes off of just data, people might decide to not allocate funding to support Black students because they're like, oh, they're succeeding. And so really, when we did the work with USC, the questions we started asking ourselves is, are we okay with having 10 Black students? Because that becomes an access issue. And so should we stop allocating funding to support the efforts that we're trying to do to increase the number of Black students who attend our institutions? And so, really being able to fund what you say that you value. We are the social justice equity campus, the leader in that. And so because of that, we have to ask ourselves, groups that have been traditionally marginalized, are we okay with saying that we're not going to allocate any funding or focus on that group, all because the state gives us data that says that they're not disproportionately impacted? And so, when I think of myself, my own lived experience, I, was a community college. I am the product of community college. If it were not for, community college, I don't know that I would have a job today. And so, and for most of our Black students, literally, it's like that, community college is their first experience with higher education. And so we have a huge responsibility, in terms of how, the role that we play in ensuring that our Black students are able to participate, and get jobs and be able to create success for themselves, their family, and their communities. And so, I don't know, I try not to get emotional. I appreciate, my brother here, like really just being passionate about what he's talking about. But the truth is the work is hard. It's often sometimes, it's not that many of us who are trying to fight. And I use that word fight because it really does feel like that oftentimes. You get tired of having to convince that, that our Black students are also worthy of that same care and love. And, that trend, to me, when you love someone, there's an action behind that, right? And so to not fund or support efforts that are literally, we're like, Shakira said, some of us are doing this work, other duties as assigned, and not even that really, because it's overload unpaid in most cases. And not that it's a union issue, because we choose to do that, Jim, if you're listening. But it is the love work, and we do it because we understand, for myself, the impact that programs have had on my life. I was a single mom. on welfare. I had my daughter when I was a teenager. I transferred to Santa Ana Community College, then to San Diego State, where I, was able to get my bachelor's, my master's, and my doctorate, and that changed the life for my family, and so when I think of programs, oh God. I said I didn't want to get emotional, but when I think about programs like EOPS, I was a part of EOPS. I was a part of the CalWorks program. Back then it was TANF. When I think of programs like that, I think about how vital of a role they play in making sure that, there is access and equal access for folks who have not traditionally been given that access. And so, I'm proud of the work that we do at City, and I don't want to keep rambling. So I'll let Dr. Hill chime in, but we do a lot of amazing, amazing work at City. And we are fortunate to have leadership, that supports it. And I know that it's not an easy task for them either, even with, Chancellor Smith, even before you became a chancellor, me literally sneaking and asking you for funding, and the fact that you supported it every single time allow for us to do the work that we needed to do. To support our students. And so, I look at other campuses and how, we do a lot of collaboration, had the opportunity to visit a lot of other campuses. And, because of our funding structure and how we're funded, oftentimes, the money is limited. But and I look at other campuses where they may have like 2 Black students, and I'm not being funny, but it's like they're getting all this funding to have centers and to have all this support. And they're supporting like 3 students. And so then you have us, and not, I'm just, just sort of exaggerating it just so that you get the point, but it's like, we're doing so much, like so much with so little. And, to not, to feel like we don't have enough funding to do it makes our job so much harder. Like my job, I don't want to have to, you know, come to work and feel like it's a fight. I don't want to have to come to work because it's also invalidating for me and my lived experience because I'm Black, right? And the message that that sends. And so, for me, when we do the work that Dr. Hill is about to talk about, it is a matter of life and death. It is, because for me, I was on welfare. Now I have a doctorate, I'm working in a community college district where I have union rights, and I was able to like just do so much for my family. So it is life and death. Like if we don't give our students these opportunities, if there's no funding to support the programs that create spaces for them to feel welcome, which is why they would want to come if they feel welcome. And so I'm going to let Dr. Hill take over before I go on and on and on.
Well, I'm gonna ask anybody in the audience, do they have any tissue? But before we move on. So I just want to say thank you, Chancellor Smith, for having us here. Thank you to my president, Dr. Ricky Shabazz, my dean is who's in the audience, Dr. Lorenzo, and our VP Instructional Services, Dr. Tilly, I believe is here. And we can say doctor, so congratulations to her. And to my VPS, Marciano Perez, who in his absence as well. Thank you all for being here. Yes, this is an important subject and matter that's to our heart. And so when we talk about Black student success at City, what does that mean? And please stay on that page. So when we talk about Black student success, we definitely want to let you all know at City, it's every day. It's not just a moment in time. It's about sustaining commitment. We talk about success, we're talking about access, as my colleagues have said to you today. It's about persistence, it's about completion and long-term mobility. How do we move? The term says, how do we move the needle? But it's like, how do we move us forward together? And so statewide data across California colleges shows that Black students continue to rise and persist when we are doing it together, when we see them, when we value them. So that's how we close the equity gaps. That's how we keep retention. And as Mesa has said, they're the equity campus. we say you belong here. So we all belong, right? So at City, we belong here. And I'm wearing this shirt that says, Dear ancestors, I understand the assignment. So all of you here today, I'm sure you understand the assignment. And the assignment is to support all of our students and our Black students because they need you. We need to make sure our systems are moving intentionally from programming to systems, from ideas to measurable outcomes. For this, about belonging with accountability. We cultivate spaces where students feel seen and supported, and we align strategy and impact. And as my colleague, Dr. Nisha Savage, talked about the success and the programs that we have on our campus, we have a student success guide. We can give those to you at a later date if anyone requests them. We do have a student success guide, and in that guide, we are talking about clarity and continuity. How do we continue this? How do we bring them together? Because research shows that students engage in instructional onboarding and early academic planning. And so I'm sure all of our campuses making sure we do that. We are significantly more likely to persist from first to second year. My colleague Nisha talked about her pathway. How did she get here? And some of our stories may be similar. Our struggles may be the same, but we rise together. And we need to keep that in focus and in mind that when students have a clear map and consistent advising touch points, they will be successful. So our student success guide integrates counseling, mentorship, academic support, and career readiness into one cohesive experience. We're not asking students to navigate complexity alone. We walk with them together. We're in this with them. We're intentionally and consistently. This is how we shift from reactive support to proactive design and academic pathways towards their success, economic and social and personal mobility. And so that's what we do at City. So I'm gonna hand it off to my colleague, and she's gonna talk about more about the programs we have and how do we see student success for our Black students.
So, can you all hear me? So, the Black Resource Guide, we have the guide that's, nicely put together by our PIO team, which we appreciate all the work that they do. We also have a Black Excellence Resource webpage. And it's a one-stop shop for students, Black students, to go to so that they can learn about all of the amazing resources that we offer. The page starts with a beautiful welcome from our campus leadership, and I want to underscore what Dr. Hill mentioned about, I think I started with, saying, giving a shout out to our leadership, but then I started crying and then forgot to say, that we appreciate, the support of our president, Dr. Ricky Shabazz, of course, Vice President Perez. I don't think he's ever told me no. I don't know if it's because he's scared to, or if,
That's why.
right? But I appreciate him so much because, again, he's always looking for the funding so that he does not have to say no. And then we also have our dean, Dr. Lorenzo, who is a friend, a colleague, and also supports the work. And we appreciate you, Tilly, for being here, our VPI, and John is not here, but our, Vice President of Business Services. It really does take, every single department on our campus to, come together across, instruction and student services in order for us to make sure that our students are being successful. I see Angeli out in the audience too. She's done a lot of amazing work, which I'll talk about right now. So some of the things that we've done at City, and the programming continues to grow as we get new people in and who come with new and fresh ideas. And I think what we've been doing more recently is being intentional about partnering with our students when we're doing programming. So when I started doing, like, for instance, our Black meet and greet, which we have at the beginning of each semester to welcome our new students, and it's an opportunity for them to see their faculty and staff and administrators who are on the campus to support them. We have a resource fair during that event. Kaya, we appreciate you for coming out as our Black Student Success, faculty lead, coming to our event. But, it's an opportunity for our students to get to know the folks on their campus who we call their village. And Angeli plays a big part in supporting us with that, as well as our Black Employee Luncheon. Because as Dr. Carter mentioned, and Dr. Adu mentioned, having infrastructure, meaning having faculty and staff there, also plays a role in Black student success. And so the luncheon is a great opportunity for, I appreciate the food, the community, and then also meeting people who I was like, I didn't know you work here. Literally, it's sad, but it's true. But you get to meet other, faculty, staff, administrators, our classified professional folks as well, who are recently hired when we have our Black Employee Luncheon. Some of the programs that we have, I'm going to just read because there's too many. We have Emoja, which, they do amazing work with our students. I think Emoja is probably like our cornerstone. And the students in the program are amazing. Nothing short of, which is, their advocacy and their work is a reason why we have our Black Resource Center, which Dr. Hill is the lead, is going to be leading that effort. But our Emoja program, we have our HUBU, which is Hermanos Unidos, Brothers United, a program that focuses on supporting the success of our Black and Brown male students. We have Black Student Success Week, which, we touched on. It's a statewide effort. I happen to sit on that board, and, it's a week long of events where literally the focus is on promoting Black student success across our campus. Let's see, we have our City Fresh Cuts, which is our barbershop. We have a lot of our HUBU program actually does a lot of talks in collaboration with mental health at the City Fresh Cuts. And that's, to me, that's actually one of the most, I don't know, innovative, ideas that we've come up with. And it's super effective in terms of like the men sharing their lived experiences and the challenges that they face. We have the Women of Color Roar program that we offer, that we actually host that event annually. We have our Black Transfer Career Fair. We have our Black Student Orientation. We have our outreach program does a lot of outreach to like the Black churches in our community and other Black community events. And then, of course, being able to take our students to Ghana has been one of the best experiences, I think, for our students to be able to go to that. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered it. Covered the matches. Like you said, we have a lot of programs, and so this is just the beginning, but we are all inclusive and we support our students.
I think that's it. I mean, the study abroad opportunity through Ghana, again, thank you to the Chancellor for supporting that. I had the opportunity to go the first year. It's a transformational experience just to be able to go and touch, to go to the continent, your ancestral land, like to just touch, to just be there, was emotional, but also transformational, going to the slave dungeon. So continuing to support that. I'm hoping that there will be continued support for that, for folks to get that opportunity. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to transition to our open town hall segment here shortly. I do have one follow-up question since Vice President Maxey brought up data, and you mentioned the Emoja program. You want to share the news on what our Emoja students achieved in fall 2025? If you know what I'm referring to off the top of your head.
I do. Talking about the Black Resource Center?
Talking about the math.
Oh, the math, yes. So, well, first of all, shout out to Dr. Rob, who is doing amazing work with our Emoja students. And so, yes, he's been doing great work. I don't know other spotlighting fall in particular, but, maybe having a success rate that was for all the students who were in the class. passing it.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's happened before. But yes, it's definitely worth clapping to. But yeah, I mean, just the way he actually was featured on I Can Go to College, which is, from our Chancellor's office, a statewide initiative that they do. And he was featured on an episode where he talked about, the strategies that he uses in his class with using music to engage students. So just being creative when you talk about pedagogy, culturally relevant pedagogy, but also practices that would, that's engaging for our students to get them to actually love math. I feel like Dr. Rob does a good job of that. So
I just want to say for our math, and not only our math, our English, we have a village that comes in and do math jams and English whole night tutorings that we host for our students to make sure they're successful. I've been in one of Dr. Rob's sessions and I was like, I don't know how he does this, but he moves the students. He makes sure they are engaged and he reaches all students. He has a classroom full of students and it could be 7, 8 o'clock at night and those students are still there and engaged. So he is one that he understands the assignment and he's moving the needle to make sure our students, our Black students are successful.
Yeah, I thought it was incredible. It's not the first time that's been done, but just an incredible outcome that when you adapt the curriculum to the interests and experiences of the students, look what happens. And I'll just share something from the email that he sent out. It was an incredible challenge to get students who almost all had struggled with math and had been told they're not a math person to reclaim their math confidence. Such an important word there. He didn't instill that confidence. They had it. It was about creating an environment where they could reclaim it and find that they were not just passing it, but they were understanding complex problems with real world data, able to tutor other students. And as he spotlighted some of the coursework, the students were asked to go out and to engage with real world data and they got to choose. Just the broad array, students who looked at unemployment rates, literary scores, hijab prices, HBCU tuition, beach pollution, homelessness counts, screen time among kids, 3-point percentages in basketball, cafeteria prices, makeup prices, ticket venue data, air pollution, soccer goals, crime statistics. One student compared the beats per minute in Tyler, the Creator songs versus Pharrell. Math is everywhere. And if you give people an interest point, they can absolutely learn. We have to think differently about how we teach in order to facilitate the genius our students come in with. So thank you all for coming up and sharing, all of our presenters today. I appreciate the work you're doing. I appreciate the opportunity to continue to invest in that work and to move, thank you, to move beyond Black student success, Hispanic student success, Asian American, our Native American studies, our Pride Centers, LGBTQ community supports, to move beyond those being categorical programs that attach and to be woven into just how we operate in everything we do. With that, now's the time for open town hall. For those in the room, there's a microphone here. If you'll come use the microphone so that those on Zoom and I admitted my hearing isn't what it was, can hear your question. For those that are online, you can submit your question. But we are now to open town hall. What would you like to talk about? Yes, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, we have the microphone on the stand up here in the front, which we can move over to be a little more centrally placed, perhaps. Yeah, if you don't, yeah, absolutely. If you're ready. You're good.
Okay. Am I doing fine? Okay.
Whichever way you want to turn it.
All right. Yes. Yeah. Okay, hello, my name is Benny and I am a student. Hello, my name is Benny and I'm a student here at Miramar. So I have a question for Dr. Savage first and foremost. Nice to meet you. Um, so you said the state gives data on basically like the people who don't want to fight for their educational work as far as Blacks, African Americans. And do you feel like it's like because of the lack of motivation or the funding or all the above?
So just to clarify, so We, we're part of the California Community College system, which has like 116 colleges within that system. And so our chancellor's office, which is, the head, right, in Sacramento, each college every year has to enter data like MIS data, and they are targeting certain student success measures like persistence, like transfer, graduation, people who are, students who are receiving a certificate. And so when we enter that data, so for instance, for Miramar, they'll enter that data every year for all of their students, not just for Black students. But when the data is disaggregated, then we can see how our Black students are doing as it relates to those student success measures. So are they being retained? Are they persisting? Are they graduating? Are they transferring? And so when we get that data, that most with, I guess within our system, most of the funding that that we'll get is tied to those student success measures, right? So if our Black students aren't, for instance, graduating or transferring, then we will get more money to make sure that they're doing that. And what I was sharing in terms of data is that we have been doing a good job at City of making sure that and largely because of programs like Emoja, that our students are transferring and are getting degrees, but they're basically comparing that data to student groups that literally may have like thousands of students in that student group as opposed to Black students being a smaller student group. So I just, to clarify that, it's not that they are not supporting, it's just that they're using the data to determine how they allocate funding, and that could be tricky because we don't have a lot of Black students at our institutions.
And I understand that 110%. The part that I'm trying to clarify is the fight that I feel that Black students are not putting up to want to stay in college and stay motivated because of the lack of resources or the lack of encouragement or the lack of motivation from other people, like, for example, like you guys, you know.
Yes.
Right,
That's what I'm asking,
right,
for sure.
exactly.
I got you. And so, yes, I mean, the data shows us that too. And it also shows us why they're not coming. If we're not creating spaces where they feel included or validated or supported, then they're not going to come. So that's why you don't see as many Black students on our campuses, is because of that very reason. And then the ones that we do have at our campus, it's our job to make sure that we're doing enough to support them. So I don't think it's a lack of motivation from the students so much as they don't feel supported, right? And that is also, makes you not feel motivated to come if you don't feel like people are supporting you. So yes, what you're saying is correct. I apologize for misunderstanding.
Last but not least for you, Ms. Savage, you did say that you did mention that there's a website for all those resources and programs that you guys have?
Yes.
Okay.
And so that's for City College. Actually, our district has a website too, that we list all of the Black programming that we're doing in our district. And so if you go to www.sdccd.edu, I'm sure if you type in the search engine, it will come up. But yes, we do have a Black resource page specifically at City.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right.
And my next question, I believe, is for Dr. Hill. Dr. Hill? Okay, there you go. All right. So why is it that certain CCs have more Black students than others? Do you feel that is it because it's the geographical location has more or less to do with it than the Black students trying to do their own research on their own research on where they want to go? And the only reason why I asked that question is because I'm a San Diego native,
Yes.
and I'm familiar with City College, and I know that like you made a point earlier about the immigrants. It's a real big population over there in that area. So do you feel like is it because of the geographical location they feel like they have to go to certain schools because of the areas, or are they doing their own research?
I'm going to ask Dr. Carter to chime in on that because I did not speak to immigration, to our immigrant students. She did, so I think she would be best to answer that for you. But for me personally, I will say I think our Black students, our students in our San Diego community are not really aware of community college system. And I'm speaking from on experience. I was headed to go straight to a four-year university. My counselor did not ask me or talk to me about a community college. I didn't know what a community college was until I came back home from a four-year university. So I just think the awareness is not really there for people that look like us. And that's what makes them not see that's a viable option.
You answered my question perfectly.
I just want to add, I think a lot of what we see for our Black students and just for students in general is that people go where they see their friends go, right? And where they see their family go, especially when we talk about first generation students, students who don't have a familiarity with the educational systems, right? And so for us at continuing education, a lot of it is word of mouth, right? A lot of it is community, especially for our immigrant community. If they see that their folks are going to continuing education and they are being loved on and successful and they have resources and access, we see more students coming to us. But to your question earlier about what are some of the barriers that prevent students from even trying or going, right? I think what we see often in our communities, in our Black communities in particular, is that folks have to make a choice about whether you're going to invest your time in education or whether you're going to invest your time into having to take care of your family, your job, right? For many of us, for most of us, being able to make the choice to invest in education is also a privilege that some folks don't have that privilege. Even at a college like ours, that is a free college, that is a non-credit college, like it's free in terms of tuition, but you have to pay with your time. You have to pay with your transportation. You have to pay with your childcare. So when we ask our students, what are some of the barriers that prevent you from coming here or being involved or enrolling semester after semester, that's what they told us, right? Is that I would love to be here all day with y'all, but I got to get a job, right? I have to work. I have to feed myself, right? And so I think that when we look at a more on a broader level, right? Like not just as what's happening in our colleges, but what's happening in our community, what's happening in our job market, what's happening in the country, right? And what is our responsibility as a country to help meet that need? That education for many is still a privilege that for so many people, they just don't get to make that choice.
Absolutely right. Thank you so much.
Ask the question and now we all.
It's a great question. I currently serve about 600, a working list of about 600 students. That list could be a lot. I'm talking Black students, and that list could be higher, but I just don't have the capacity and resources just to support those students. Why do they come to me? Because they're referred to by other practitioners who love on them, like Dr. Sarah B., like Zuri and others, Marquise, because we have a team who are committed to this work. And I'm extremely grateful for them because without them, there would be no Black student success. They come to me because I'm going to fight for them, even if that means going outside the institution to get help. So our students were walking to our Mid-City East Dago campus from El Cajon, from Spring Valley. We didn't have resources to get them bus passes. So I found a partnership and forged a partnership with Black Tech Link to provide bus passes for our students. Our students, they needed legal help. They had nowhere else to turn. So we formed partnerships with community organizations to help them. So that's why our students come, because they know that I care, that we care, and that we're gonna fight for them. And they need help. They need resources, they need money, and that we're gonna do everything we can to help them and support them with that.
Thank you so much. And that's what I was talking about as far as when I mentioned the fight, because that's the reason why a lot of them do give up on that fight, is because they lack those resources. They lack that motivation. They lack other African Americans helping them out and push forward, take that next step. And they don't have bus passes. They don't have a way to get to school and things like that.
And I would just like to add, good day. My name is Dr. Sarah Boswell, and I'm an ESL instructor at CE. But what we just described is what Dr. Carter mentioned earlier. It's a system of love. That's the system of love in action, and we can see the results.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions, and thank you for giving us a chance to serve you by being a student in our district. I appreciate you. So, other questions? Yes.
I want to follow up on that because I really appreciate the question. I think part of the fight is that there's a lot of swirl that goes on. And students have to go from one institution to the next within our own district and continue fighting because one might provide it, but the other might not. So how do we institutionalize getting bus passes and getting that support?
So for those who are not familiar with some of the inside jargon we like to use, swirl refers to students who enroll in multiple of our colleges. And this has increased dramatically after COVID forced a lot of things online. We see more students who are looking for the schedule that's most supportive of their needs. And that might not be all classes at one college. It might be online here, in person there. And our district has a long history of valuing the autonomy of each of the colleges and letting them stand as separate institutions, which has some really positive outcomes. One of the negatives is you end up with different ways of accomplishing the same thing. And now the student is going, wait, I did this as city and it worked. How come it's not working at Mesa? Because it's a different system. And so it is forcing us to come together and work more in collaboration on having consistency to better support our students while retaining the individuality, the culture and character that makes our colleges unique and truly special. So that's ongoing work that comes out of a history that we need to think differently in some ways about the future while retaining the positives of that. Other questions? Hello? Yeah, we can turn it down. There you go.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It is good to be here. Like I had to make it like the last minutes. I was on virtual. And this is just to kind of explain more to me being a non-traditional student parent. I was in court all day fighting to maintain custody of my kids. So I'm Black, as you can see. I'm an immigrant. I'm from South America, and I'm a parenting student and a single parenting student at that. I've benefited so much from being a student at continuing ed, then I transitioned to Mesa College, and I transferred to SDSU. I got my associates in Black Studies, social work, and psychology, and now I'm at SDSU and I'm pursuing counseling, social work, and child and family development. So, well, while I'm going through these pathways, I've realized the need for inclusion of parenting students. So I'm going back, creating spaces for parent students to feel included. Um, One of my questions is, so as an alum, student parent, what I do is I work to advocate at Mesa College with SDCCD and then also at SDSU to advocate for awareness, inclusion, and support for our present student population, which are mostly Black, so that we could move through this process successfully. And my question is that when it comes to Black student success, what efforts are being made to sustain and to improve the funding to these programs, and what support Black student populations, especially the parenting student demographic, what support is there for them as they continue? And lastly, I know that you go and you advocate for funding. So my question is, when it comes to budget allocations, are there any updates or ways that successful parents, well, students, especially parenting students like that we could share our lived experience to kind of enhance and bring awareness to the need for the funding to these programs that help students like me be successful?
Thank you so much for the question. Thank you for the effort you made to tune in remotely and to be here and to share your question and your voice. And I would love to reach a day where the story you just told of your experience applies to virtually everybody that's coming out of our district. That you could come as an immigrant into the College of Continuing Education, into Mesa College, onto San Diego State. That should be what we're designed to do, not the exception, because you managed to navigate around the barriers. And I know you know firsthand from your time at Mesa some of what we have accomplished and how that sets the stage for what we build. So a couple of years ago, we went to Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs, There is a process now for getting congressionally directed spending. A member of Congress in the House or the Senate can make a specific request for funding. And then you go through the process of how the appropriation bills and the federal government get signed. We were successful that year to open up a parent resource center at Mesa College. It's not full childcare, but you can go into that space and there are resources to engage the children as the student, the parent can engage in their academic work. And it provides a space where you also have some community to meet other parents who are figuring this out and share resources and the struggle and to create some bonds around that. City College last year got a grant to begin to offer childcare during the evening for students that were taking classes at night, working during the day when they had childcare or their kids were in school, but needed that daycare from 6 p.m. to 8:59 p.m. And there's a thing in the law that makes 9 o'clock a really expensive thing to do, which is why it's 8:59 p.m. A point of that advocacy, we need to be able to address some of these structural barriers. Mesa College is pursuing a agreement with the YMCA to offer a similar childcare in the evening program to be able to support students that are taking classes in the evenings. Each one of those I view as something of a pilot to demonstrate the possibility of success to then become the basis for that advocacy. Here's a thing we know works. If you would invest in it, we can scale it. And that goes a long way when we come with ideas to legislators that are proven. We do have some data behind it. It makes it a lot easier for them to say, okay, I support that. I'll carry it forward. I'll go to committee meetings and speak on behalf of it. I'll engage with the resistant, do everything that they need to do. District-wide, looking at how do we expand access within our own child care centers for our students. And that's a much longer discussion than we have right now to get into, but an area of focus for us going forward. Looking at how we can expand that just-in-time type childcare service throughout the day, because it's not just students that are working and need evening classes. I may not need full-time daycare, but if I could have my child in a daycare center for 2 or 3 hours while I do 2 or 3 classes, that would meet my need and keep me persisting. So there are a number of things to do, but ultimately this is going to come to being able to articulate something that we know works up to our state and to our federal elected officials, and then ask them to carry that legislation or those funding requests to be able to scale the work. Thank you so much for the question. I think we have time for one more. We haven't heard from anybody online yet either. No. Going once. Going twice. Okay, well, thank you all so much for joining us today. I want to thank all of our presenters across our colleges and district office for coming in and sharing the work that's being done. As I said throughout, thank you for the work. This is essential to who we are, to our mission, and the work that you're doing is absolutely incredible to support our students. So thank you all. We'll be planning the fall town hall and some other engagement opportunities. Very much want to get your feedback on this town hall and what you would like to see us talk about in the future with the town hall session. So thank you everybody that's logged in. Thank you everybody that joined us here in the room. Thank you to those that are watching this at some point in the future. Have a great rest of your day and week.